Imagine for a moment this kind of hidden journey that every new medicine takes, long before it ever gets to you or me.
Hmm.
It's not just, a quick discovery. Think about the really rigorous tests, the huge efforts behind every single pill or vaccine.
It's immense. It's years, sometimes decades of work.
Exactly. So today we're going to try and pull back the curtain on that whole process. We're taking a deep dive into, well, the fascinating, sometimes pretty complex world of clinical trial phases.
That's right. We'll be breaking down that whole systematic progression,
Yeah.
how a drug actually develops from that very first idea, maybe scribbled in a notebook somewhere,
Right.
all the way through the lab work, the human testing, and even what happens after it's approved and out on the market. It's quite the journey.
It really is. And our mission today, it isn't just to list the steps A, B, C.
No,
We really want to understand the why behind each phase. The purpose, how these studies are designed, who takes part.
the participants are key.
Absolutely. And the challenges, the massive challenges, and frankly, success rates or sometimes the lack thereof. How does something go from just an idea to a treatment that could, you know, change someone's life? It's not just science. It feels like there's a real human story here, too.
Oh, definitely. Discovery, safety, it's all deeply human.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start right at the beginning. Before a single person gets an experimental drug, there's all this foundational work happening, right? Sometimes for years.
Precisely. Years, often.
Yeah.
This is what we call the preclinical research phase. And it's really all about setting the scientific stage, getting everything ready.
So, what does that involve practically?
Well, it kicks off with discovery scientists identifying potential targets in the body, something the drug could actually affect.
Okay.
Then comes something called lead optimization. That's basically refining chemical structures to make the potential drug more effective, hopefully safer too.
It's a lot of chemistry.
And tweaking molecules.
Right.
Exactly. And only when they have these refined compounds, then they move into really rigorous testing. First, in cells and tissues, that's called in vitro.
In the lab dish, basically.
Yeah. And then, crucially, in animals, animal testing and toxicology studies. The whole point here is to get an early look at safety and see if there's any sign it might work, all in these controlled models, long before humans are involved.
And all that work, all those studies, they lead up to something specific, don't they? The sort of permission slip to start human testing.
That's the one. The Investigational New Drug Application, or IND. It's a massive package of data submitted usually to the FDA here in the US.
And what happens with that IND? Is it just a rubber stamp?
Oh, definitely not. The FDA has a 30-day review period. They comb through it, looking at completeness, but most importantly, all that safety data from the preclinical work.
Okay.
And alongside that, there's an ethical review by an Institutional Review Board, an IRB. They look at the ethics, the patient protection side of things.
So I double check science and ethics.
Absolutely. It's a critical gatekeeper. You can't start human trials without both the FDA's okay and the IRB's approval. Patient well-being is paramount.
Okay, so the IND is approved. This is where it starts to get really interesting, right? We move into phase I, the first in human studies. Must be a pretty big moment.
It's a monumental step. Phase I is almost entirely about safety. That's the primary objective.
Just safety.
Primarily. Identifying any adverse effects, any toxicities. Basically, what's the drug's initial safety profile in people? They also want to find the maximum tolerated dose, the MTD.
The highest dose people can handle without unacceptable side effects.
Exactly. And they also study pharmacokinetics, PK. That's how the body handles the drug. Absorption, distribution, metabolism, excretion, and pharmacodynamics, PD, how the drug actually affects the body.
And who are the people usually taking part in these phase I trials?
Typically, it's a small group, maybe 20 to 100 people, and usually they're healthy volunteers.
Healthy, not people with the disease.
Usually not in phase I. They want to see the drug's effects without the disease complicating things. But there's an important exception.
Oh, yeah.
For very serious illnesses, like advanced cancers or terminal diseases, sometimes patients do participate in phase I. If there's a chance, even a small one, of direct benefit and maybe no other options exist.
Wow, that takes incredible courage.
It really does. And these studies are intense, often involve staying in a clinic, lots of monitoring, frequent blood draws to check drug levels and effects. It's a big commitment.
You mentioned finding the highest safe dose. How do they do that without, starting too high?
Very cautiously. They use dose escalation strategies, like the traditional 3+3 design. Start with a super low dose in 3 people. If it's safe, try a slightly higher dose in another 3.
Okay.
If there's a serious toxicity in one, they add 3 more at that dose. If 2 or more have problems out of 6, they stop escalating. It's very methodical. Sometimes they use faster methods like accelerated titration early on, but always super careful.
Safety first.
Always.
And these participants, the healthy volunteers especially, they aren't really expecting the drug to cure anything for them at this stage, right?
Generally, no. Therapeutic benefit isn't the main goal in phase I for healthy volunteers. They're usually compensated for their time, the inconvenience, the commitment, and everything is explained in a really detailed, informed consent process. They have to understand the potential risks.
So phase I is all done. What does it mean if a drug passes? What are the odds?
Well, surprisingly, maybe. About 70% of experimental drugs actually make it through phase 1, which sounds high, but remember the bar is primarily safety at this point.
Right.
The key decision is this drug safe enough to move forward? Can we now start testing if it actually works for the intended condition without putting people at unacceptable risk?
Okay, so if it clears that safety hurdle, phase 2 is where the big question changes, right? Now it's really about, does this thing actually work?
Exactly. Phase 2 is often called the proof of concept stage. The main goal is efficacy evaluation. Does the drug have the effect we want on the disease in patients?
Patients, not healthy volunteers this time.
Right. And they're also working on dose optimization, trying to find the best dose. Not just a safe dose, but one that works well. And of course, safety monitoring continues. Plus, trying to figure out which patients seem to benefit most.
And who takes part now? How many people?
It's a larger group than phase 1, typically 100 to maybe 300 patients who have the target disease or condition.
Okay.
They're selected carefully using specific criteria. Inclusion means you have the right characteristics. Exclusion means you have things that might interfere with the study or put you at risk.
Makes sense.
And these trials often happen at multiple locations, multiple clinics or hospitals to get a more diverse group of patients. They can last quite a bit longer too, several months, up to maybe 2 years, sometimes with follow-up after that.
And I've heard phase 2 sometimes gets split, like III and II. What's that about?
Yeah, that's common. Think of phase II as the early look at efficacy. Smaller groups, maybe 50 to 100 people, often single arm, meaning everyone gets the drug. Just trying to see if there's any signal it's working.
Like a first hint.
Exactly. Then phase I is usually bigger, maybe 100 to 300 people, and more focused on finding the right dose. These are typically randomized controlled studies.
Okay, randomized controlled. Let's break that down. What does randomized mean here?
Randomized assignment means patients are put into different groups, like one gets the experimental drug, another gets a placebo or the standard treatment purely by chance, like flipping a coin.
Why do that?
To avoid bias. So researchers don't subconsciously put sicker or healthier patients into one group or another. It makes the groups comparable from the start.
Got it. And controlled, that means comparing it to something.
Right. Comparing to a control group, often receiving a placebo, a dummy pill.
Yeah.
Or maybe the best currently available treatment.
And then there's blinding, right? Keeping people in the dark about who gets what.
Yes, also crucial for avoiding bias. Single blind means the patient doesn't know if they got the real drug or the control. Double blind means neither the patient nor the doctor or researchers interacting with them know who's getting what. That's generally preferred because it prevents expectations from influencing the results on either side.
Keeps everything objective.
As much as possible, yes. So the key questions in phase 2 become, does drug X actually improve disease Y? Which dose works best? 1 milligram, 2 milligram, 3 milligram, how often? And who seems to respond?
This sounds like a much tougher hurdle than phase 1. What are the odds of getting through phase 2?
They drop significantly. Only about 33%, roughly a third of drugs that pass phase I and 2 actually move on to phase 3.
Wow, so 2/3 of drugs that look safe and showed some early promise don't make it past this stage.
That's right. It's a major decision point. A real go-no-go based on whether there's a clear enough signal of efficacy and if the safety profile still looks acceptable. Many promising ideas just don't pan out here.
Okay, so if a drug beats those tough odds and gets the green light after phase 2, we arrive at phase 3. This is a big one, right? The main event.
You could definitely say that. Phase 3 trials are the large-scale confirmatory studies. This is about getting definitive proof of benefit. Often, they compare the new drug directly against the current standard of care, the best treatment already available.
So the objectives really scale up here.
Absolutely. Confirming efficacy, but now in a much larger, more diverse population. Comparing effectiveness, is it better than what we already have? Or maybe just as good, but with fewer side effects? Comprehensively characterizing safety, looking for rarer side effects that might only show up when thousands are treated.
Thousands.
Yes. Phase 3 involves several hundred to often several thousand patients. The goal is to represent the broad population the drug is intended for once it's marketed.
Okay.
So these trials are run across many centers, often internationally, to capture that diversity. And they're long, typically 1 to 4 years, sometimes with even longer follow-up.
Really trying to see the long-term picture.
Exactly. And these phase 3 trials are generally considered the gold standard in clinical research.
Why gold standard?
Because they are typically randomized controlled trials, or RCTs. They use active controls comparing against the best existing treatment, or sometimes placebo controls, but usually only if no effective treatment exists.
Okay.
They're designed with enough statistical power to reliably detect clinically meaningful differences, not just random chance. And double blinding is standard practice to maintain that objectivity.
And I imagine the regulators are watching very closely at this stage.
Intensely.
Yeah.
There are strict guidelines like the International Council for Harmonization, Good Clinical Practice, ICH-GCP. It sets the ethical and scientific quality standards.
Okay.
Regulatory bodies like the FDA often conduct inspections during or after phase 3 trials, looking at everything, how the data was collected, patient safety, documentation. It's incredibly rigorous.
And what comes out of phase 3? What's the main product?
The key deliverables are massive. Detailed clinical study reports huge documents summarizing everything, and critically, the information that will go into the drug's official label or package insert.
The instructions for doctors.
Exactly. Indications, what it's approved for, dosage, contraindications, when not to use it, warnings, precautions, and that full list of potential adverse reactions. Everything needed for safe and effective prescribing.
So, looking back from the start, what percentage of drugs that even begin this journey in phase 6, I actually make it all the way through phase 3 and get approved?
It's a pretty small fraction. Overall, maybe 25-30% of drugs that enter phase 3 get approved. But if you go all the way back to the start of phase 1, only about 10-12% make it through all 3 phases and gain approval.
Wow, less than 1 in 8.
Yeah, it's tough. Successfully finishing phase 3 is what allows the company to submit the new drug application, the NDA, to the FDA.
The final hurdle before potentially reaching patients.
Right, and that NDA submission itself is just monumental.
How so?
Think of it as the complete biography of the drug, a massive, comprehensive package submitted to the FDA. We're talking hundreds of thousands of pages sometimes.
What's actually in all those pages? Is it just the phase 3 results?
Oh no, much more. It includes the entire clinical data package, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, studies in special populations, everything.
Okay.
Plus all the non-clinical data, the pharmacology, toxicology from animals, how the drug moves through animal bodies, carcinogenicity studies.
So all the preclinical stuff too.
Yes. And really importantly, incredibly detailed manufacturing information. The chemistry of the drug substance, how it's made, the whole process, stability data, quality control tests, everything to ensure it can be made consistently and safely. It's exhaustive.
You can see why it takes so long to review. This must be the moment of truth for the company, right? After all those years and all that investment?
Absolutely. Billions of dollars, a decade or more of work, countless people involved.
Yeah.
It all culminates in this review process.
How long does that review usually take?
The FDA has standard timelines. A standard review is typically around 10 to 12 months. That includes an initial 60 days where they just check if the application is complete enough to even review properly. Then the detailed scientific review by teams of chemists, doctors, statisticians, pharmacologists.
But sometimes it's faster, isn't it? I've heard of priority reviews.
Yes. If a drug seems to offer a significant improvement over existing therapies for a serious condition, it can get priority review designation. The goal then is to make a decision within 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
And there are other expedited programs too, like Fast Track or Breakthrough Therapy, that can help speed things up for drugs addressing unmet needs.
So let's say a drug makes it through that intense review, gets approved. Is the story over then? Is the testing finished?
Not quite. Even after approval, the learning and monitoring continues. We enter phase 4, which is often called post-market surveillance.
Post-market. Why keep testing after it's approved and available?
It's crucial, actually. The primary goals are things like detecting rare side effects. You might only see an adverse event that happens in 1 in 10,000 people once the drug is used by millions, something you'd likely miss even in a large phase 3 trial.
Okay. Safety in the real world.
Exactly. Also, assessing how effective it is in broader everyday clinical practice outside the controlled environment of a trial. Studying its use in specific groups that might have been excluded from earlier trials, like pregnant women, children, the very elderly.
Right, groups that need special consideration.
And identifying potential interactions with other drugs that people might be taking, things you only see when it's widely used.
So the scale of phase IV must be enormous compared to the earlier phases.
Vastly larger. We're talking potentially thousands to hundreds of thousands, even millions of patients over the entire time the drug is on the market. It happens in real-world settings, doctors' offices, hospitals.
Are these studies mandatory?
Some are. The FDA can mandate post-market requirements, or PMRs, often to address specific safety questions that came up during the review. Companies have to do these. Failure can, in theory, lead to the approval being withdrawn.
Serious stuff.
Yes. Then there are also voluntary post-market commitments, or PMCs, that companies agree to do, maybe to explore new uses or gather more data.
And how does this information get collected? Is it just formal studies?
Formal studies are part of it, but a huge component is pharmacovigilance. That means ongoing monitoring.
Okay.
It includes collecting spontaneous reports of side effects from doctors, pharmacists, patients themselves. Companies have to regularly submit safety reports to regulators. They use sophisticated methods for signal detection, looking for patterns in the data that might suggest a new safety issue.
Like an early warning system.
Exactly. And for drugs known to have serious risks, the FDA might require a risk evaluation and mitigation strategy, or REMES.
What's that?
It's a specific plan to manage known risks. It could involve things like restricted distribution, special training for doctors, or required patient monitoring to ensure the benefits still outweigh the risks.
And I hear more about real-world evidence now, too. Does that fit in here?
Absolutely. Real-world evidence, or RWE, generated from analyzing large data sets like electronic health records or insurance claims databases, is increasingly important in Phase 4. It gives valuable insights into long-term safety and effectiveness in routine care.
So we've walked through this entire incredibly long journey. Let's circle back to those odds.
It's a system designed to filter out things that don't work well enough or aren't safe enough.
So just to recap those filters, roughly 70% pass phase I safety checks.
Mhm.
Then only about 33% of those pass phase 2 efficacy and dose finding.
Right, a big drop off there.
And then maybe 25-30% of the ones that started phase I actually clear phase 3 and get approved.
That's about right. It's a funnel, getting narrower at each stage.
And the timelines. Just remind us again, how long does this whole process take?
It adds up quickly.
Mhm.
Preclinical, maybe 3 to 6 years. Phase 1, 6 months to maybe 18 months. Phase 2, 1 to 3 years. Phase 3, 1 to 4 years, sometimes longer. Regulatory review, another 6 to 12 months, roughly.
So you're looking at what, 10 to 15 years minimum, typically?
Easily. Sometimes